Hi there, so today's lesson is lesson 8.5, calculating with mixed numbers. The objectives today to be able to write a mixed number as an improper fraction and vice versa, and to be able to use the for operations with mixed numbers. So a quick prior knowledge check before we start. You should already know how to change an improper fraction to a mixed number. So 7/4 is equal to 1 3/7. And you should know how to change a mixed number into an improper fraction. So 9 1/6 would be equal to 55/6. You should also be able to simplify fractions. So 4/6. To simplify, we need to do the same to the numerator and the denominator. So we're going to divide them both by 2, and we get 2/3. You should also be able to add, subtract, multiply and divide with fractions. If you can't do any of those there, or you're not confident with those, please make sure you stop this video, go back and have a look at the specific videos on adding, subtracting, multiplying and dividing with fractions first. Things you'll need for this lesson: you need your maths book or some paper to write on, and you'll need a pen or a pencil to write with. Okay, so to start then, we're going to have a look at converting mixed numbers to improper fractions. So this should be a bit of a recap for most of you, but I want to make sure that we can do this as it's a key part of today's lesson. So a mixed number is any whole number and fraction combination, and we're asked to convert the mixed numbers into improper fractions. Now, one way you might do this is with a diagram. So first we've got 3 1/4. Okay, so here we have 3 whole circles and 1/4 of a circle. Now if I look at my diagram, this one has 4 quarters, 4 quarters, 4 quarters and 1. So that's 4, 8, 12, 13 quarters. Okay, so there we are, 13 out of 4 or 13 quarters, however you prefer to say it. Now obviously we're not going to want to draw a diagram for every one of these, especially if we had a really large whole number at the beginning. So we need a quicker way. So the quicker way, the method is shown here. So we've got the whole number multiplied by the denominator, so 3 times 4, which gives us 12. So that tells us how many quarters are in all of the whole pieces that we've got. And then we've got this 1/4 left over. So we need to add the 1, and that gives us our 13. So multiplying the whole number and the denominator tells us how many there are within all the whole numbers. Then we add on any of our extra ones to give us our new numerator. But our denominator is still in quarters. We've still cut up the circles in 2 quarters. Okay, let's have a go with the second one then, following that rule. So we're going to do the whole number multiplied by the denominator, add the numerator. So 6 times 3 is 18 plus 2 is 20, and that's going back over our 3 as that's our denominator. So you can see the denominator same all the way along. So we've got 20 out of 3 or 20/3, however you prefer to say it. Our next one then, following the same rule, 5 times 8 plus 2. So 5 times 8 is 40 plus 2 is 42. And that gives us 42 out of 8 or 42/8. Make sure you're happy with those before you can move on to have a go yourself. Okay, so now it's your turn. So there are some mixed numbers there for you to have a go at turning into improper fractions. Try to use the method shown and make sure you write down your method clearly until you get the hang of it. Pause the video, have a go now. Okay, let's have a look at the answers for these then. So our first one, we've got 6 times 5 plus 3, which is 33/5 or 33/5. Our second one, we've got 7 times 8 plus 3, which is 59, which goes over 8. Then 3 times 6 plus 5, which is 23/6. 8 times 7 plus 6, which is 62/7. 4 times 10 plus 9 is 49/10. And 5 times 9 plus 7 is 52/9. So you'll notice when I say these, I tend to say one number over another number. I could also say 52/9, or I could say 52 out of 9, okay, because this is a division symbol in the middle. So they all mean the same thing, depending on how you say it, or how you may have heard your teacher say it. Make sure you're happy with those before you move on. Okay, so now that we've changed mixed numbers to improper fractions, we're going to have a go at changing improper fractions into mixed numbers. So remember, an improper fraction, sometimes called a top-heavy fraction, is where the numerator is larger than the denominator. So to convert these, we need to find out how many denominators fit into the numerator, because that will make whole ones, and then how many are remaining. Again, you could use a diagram if you wanted to. Okay, so here we are. We've got 5 out of 4, or 5 quarters. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters make up one whole, and there's my 5th quarter. So I can see that I've got 1 whole and 1 quarter left over. Okay, so essentially we've done 5 divided by 4. Remembering this line here is a division line. 4 fits into 5 one whole time with 1 remainder, which goes back over that same denominator. All right, let's try the next one then. So we need to do 27 divided by 5. So that means we're going to see how many 5s can I fit into 27. Okay, so if I count up in 5s, I can fit 5 whole 5s into 27 with 2 remainder. So I get a 5 as a whole number. My remainder is my numerator, and that goes back over my denominator, which in this case was also 5. So I get 5 and 2/5. Last example then, we need to see how many 7s we can fit into 28. So we're going to do 28 divided by 7, which fits in exactly 4 times. There are no remainders at all. So if there are no remainders, we simply get a whole number. Okay, make sure you're happy with those before we move on to have a go yourself. All right, so again, it's your turn then. So pause the video and have a go with those. Okay, let's have a look at the solutions then. So 4 fits into 8, 2 whole times, no remainders. 4 goes into 7, 1 whole time, with 3 remainder going back over the 4. 2 fits into 15, 7 whole times, with 1 remainder going back over 2, so we get 7.5. 7 goes into 10, 1 whole time, with 3 remaining back over the 7, 1 3/7. 9 goes into 54, 6 whole times with no remainders. And 5 goes into 27, 5 whole times with 2 remainders, which go back over the 5. Make sure you're happy with your answers before you move on. We're going to be using these skills of changing between mixed numbers and improper fractions backwards and forwards throughout the rest of the lesson. Okay, so let's have a look now at adding and subtracting with mixed numbers. Before we deal with mixed numbers, we usually want to change them to improper fractions. Okay, so rather than trying to deal with 2 different types of fractions, if we have them both as fractions rather than mixed numbers and fractions, it makes life easier for all of the different things we want to do. So whether we're going to add, subtract, multiply, or divide, we're going to make them into 2 fractions before we start. So when we see a mixed number, the first thing we want to do is change it into a fraction. So we're going to have to change it into an improper fraction. So remember, the rule is do the whole number times the denominator, add the numerator. That will give us our new numerator. Okay, and then it goes back over the 4. So our first step was to change the mixed number into an improper fraction. Now that I have 2 fractions, I can look to add them as we did in previous lessons. So what I'm looking for is, do they have a common denominator? So we're going to check, are the denominators the same? Now in this case they are. If they are the same, then we can either add or subtract the numerators together. So in this case it's add. So we can do 7 plus 3 is 10, and we get 10 over 4, 10 quarters. Finally then, we need to simplify and change it back into a mixed number because at the moment it's top heavy. Now you have a choice. You can simplify first and then change to a mixed number, or you can change to a mixed number and then simplify. So let's change it into a mixed number. So 4 goes into 10 2 whole times with 2 remaining, which go back over the 4. And now I need to check if I can simplify. The 2 is fine, but 2 quarters is the same as a half. So I get 2 1/2. Let's do a couple more examples. So here I've got 2 more examples. You'll probably want to write these down in your book as we go. So first step then, change any mixed numbers into improper fractions. So we can do 5 times 10 is 50 plus 3, so we get 53/10. And we're going to 2 times 5 is 10 plus 1 is 11, and we're going to get 11/5. So we've converted the first one to top heavy and the second. Next step, check the denominators. Now I've got a 10 and a 5, so they're not the same. So remember, to be able to add or subtract, we need a common denominator. So we're looking for the lowest common multiple of 10 and 5, which is 10. So this one's okay, but this one, to change the denominator to 10, means we need to times by 2. And we do the same to the numerator and the denominator. So we're going to times both of these by 2. So we get 22/10. So remember, we've kept the first one because it was already a denominator of 10. And we've doubled the second one so that its denominator is also 10. Now we can add or subtract. So we're adding. So we add the numerators. 150 plus 22 is 172/10. Again, we can either simplify first or convert to a mixed number first. If I want to convert it to a mixed number, I need to see how many 10s I can fit into 172. So I can fit 17 with 2 remaining, which go back over the 10. And now I look to simplify. So remember, the whole number stays, but can I simplify the fraction? 2 and 10 both have 2 in common. So if I divide by 2, we get 17 and 1/5, or 17 1/5. Our second example then. Again, our first step, change to an improper fraction. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 3 is 11. So that gives me 11/4. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 1 is 4. So that gives me 4/3. So make sure you do them separately. Oh, sorry, a little typing error there. Just 1 second. Sorry about that. I had a little plus instead of a minus in there. Make sure you do get the right symbol in the middle. So now we check our denominators. So we've got a 3 and a 4, so they're not the same. So we need a common denominator. The lowest common multiple of 3 and 4 is 12. So to get from 4 to 12, I have to multiply by 3. So I do that to the whole fraction, and that will give me 33/12. To get from 3 to 12, I need to times by 4. So I do that to the whole fraction, and I get 16/12. Now we've got the same denominator. We've got 33 minus 16, which gives me 17/12. Again, it's an improper fraction, so I need to change it to a mixed number. 12 fits into 17 1 whole time with 5 remaining back over the 12. And I just check. I can't simplify 5 12, so there's no common value that fits into 5 and 12. So that's my answer. Make sure you've written down those examples before you move on. Okay, so now it's your turn. So pause the video, have a go, making sure you've used your notes there to help you. So remember, the first step, change all of the mixed numbers into improper fractions before you continue. Pause the video and have a go now. Okay, let's have a look at the solutions then. So we should have 13/3 plus 3/4. We change to a common denominator of 12, giving us 52/12 plus 9/12. That gives us 61/12, and we change back to a mixed number. We get 5 1/12. For our next one then, we get 22/3 minus 1/6. Again, we need a common denominator. We get 44/6 minus 1/6, which gives us 43/6, and change back to a mixed number. 7 and 1/6. For number 3, we've got 13/6 plus 9/7. Our common denominator for those is 42, so we get 91 over 42 plus 54 over 42, giving us 145 over 42. And we change to a mixed number, we get 3 and 19 over 42. For number 4 then, we've got 41/5 minus 13/9, which with a common denominator of 45 gives us 369 over 45 minus 65 over 45, leaving us with 304 over 45. Change back to a mixed number and we get 6 and 34 over 45. So some quite big numbers to deal with for that one. Our last one then, we've got 32/6 minus 1/7. Our common denominator for 6 and 7 is 42, so 224 over 42 minus 6 over 42, which gives us 218 over 42, which we can simplify. If we half both of them, we get 109 over 21, and then change to a mixed number, we get 5 and 4 over 21. So remember, at this stage here, you could change to a mixed number first and then simplify the fraction. I've chosen this time to simplify the fraction, so I've got some slightly smaller numbers to deal with before changing to the mixed number. Make sure you're happy with those before you move on. Okay, so we're moving on now then to look at multiplying mixed numbers. So again, we'll go through the different steps first of all. So again, first step then, if we've got mixed numbers, we need to change them to improper fractions. So our first one then becomes 9 over 4, and our second one 8 over 5. Now remember, with multiplying, we don't need a common denominator. We can just multiply numerators and multiply denominators together. So if we multiply the numerators, 9 times 8 is 72, and multiply the denominators, 4 times 5 is 20. Now we've got our improper fraction. So again, either simplify first and then change to a mixed number, or change to a mixed number first and then simplify. So if we change it first of all to a mixed number, 20 fits into 72 3 whole times with 12 remaining. Let's go back over the 20, and now we need to simplify the 12 and 20. They're both even, so can be divided by 2, but hopefully we'll notice that 12 and 20 can also be divided by 4. So we get 3 and 3/5. Remember, when simplifying, you can do it in more than one step. So you could, if they're both even, half them and then repeat that process again as many times as needed. Okay, so those are our steps. Let's have a couple more examples to make sure we're confident. So these are our examples then. So our first one, we've got 1 1/3 times 5. So again, we want two fractions. So with our mixed number, we're going to change it to an improper fraction. And with our integer, remember, to change an integer into a fraction, we divide it by 1. So we're going to put 5 over 1. Okay, so we do want two fractions again before we do anything with them. Multiply the numerators together and multiply the denominators together. We get 25 over 3. And we're going to see how many 3's we can fit into 25. Well, there are 8 with 1 remainder, which goes back over 3, and we can't simplify it any further. This time we've got two mixed numbers, so we're going to change them both to improper fractions first. So remember, we're multiplying, so 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13, so 13 over 4, and 1 times 3 is 3, plus 2 is 5, so 5/3. Multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, so we get 65 over 12. 12 fits into 65 5 whole times with 5 remaining back over 12, and I can't simplify 5/12. So that's our final answer. Make sure you've copied the examples before you move on to having a go yourself. Okay, so again, it's your turn. So we've got the first two there are similar to the first example. Sorry, the first three there are similar to the first example. And then question 4, we've got a mixed number and one that's a fraction already. And question 5, we've got a fraction and then a mixed number. But remember, to be able to multiply, we need 2 fractions. So we need to change our values so that we always start with 2 fractions. Pause the video, have a go now. Okay, let's have a look at the solutions for these then. So first of all, we're going to change our mixed number into an improper fraction and our integer into an improper fraction as well. So we get 5 over 2 times 3 over 1. Multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, 15 over 2, and then we're going to change back to a mixed number. 2 fits into 15 7 whole times with 1 remaining back over the 2. Our next one, the same idea. So we get 41 over 10 times 2 over 1. 41 times 2 is 82, and 10 times 1 is 10. 10 fits into 82 8 times with 2 remaining, and our 2/10 can be simplified to 1/5. So I've just simplified them straight away there. The next one then, we get 8 over 5 times 10 over 1. So 8 times 10 is 80, 5 times 1 is 5, and 5 fits into 80 16 whole times with no remainers, so just a single whole integer there. This one then, change the first one, so we get 31/10 times 2/3, so 31 times 2 is 62, and 10 times 3 is 30. 30 fits into 62 2 whole times with 2/30 remaining, and then we simplify our 2/30 down to 1/15. And the last one then, so we're keeping the first fraction as is, that's fine. Change the second one to an improper fraction, and we get 4/7 times 9/5. 4 times 9 is 36, 7 times 5 is 35. 35 fits into 36 1 whole time with 1 remainder back over our 35. Make sure you're happy with those before you move on. Okay, so now we're going to have a look then at dividing mixed numbers. So again, the same applies. We don't want to deal with mixed numbers. We need 2 fractions instead. So we'll need 2 improper fractions. So again, step 1, change to improper fractions. And we get 9 over 4 divided by 8 over 5. Now remember our rules for dividing. We don't ever divide fractions. We change them into multiplication calculations, and we do that by keeping the first fraction, 9 over 4, changing the symbol from divide to times, and flipping the second fraction. Finding its reciprocal, we turn it upside down. So we've kept the first one, changed the symbol, flipped the second one, and now we're back to a multiplication just as we did before. We do 9 times 5 is 45, 4 times 8 is 32, and again change back to a mixed number and simplify if possible. So we get 1 and 13 over 32. Okay, do make sure you're happy with the steps, particularly the dividing. Sorry. Okay, 2 more examples then, just to make sure we're really happy. So our first one, we're going to change our mixed number into an improper fraction. We have a fraction here, so that one's fine. We're going to keep, swap, flip. So keep, swap, flip. Now we multiply. 32 times 2 is 64. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 goes into 64 21 whole times with 1 remainder back over our 3. So 21 and a third. For this one, we've got 2 mixed numbers, so we're going to have to change both of them to improper fractions first. So we get 10 over 3, 10/3 divided by 13 over 6. We keep, we swap, we flip. Now we multiply. 6 times 10 is 60, and 3 times 13 is 39. 39 fits into 61 whole time with 21 over 39 remaining. Now 21 and 39 are both divisible by 3, so we get 1 and 7 over 13. Okay, don't panic too much if you get to this point and you can't simplify this final fraction. All right, we generally look to see if they're even when we can divide by 2. If they're not, you need to be thinking about, can they be divided by 3 or 7? Okay, they're the usual ones to keep an eye out for. Make sure you're happy with those and you've got those written down before you move on to have a go yourself. Okay, so again, it's your turn then. So you've got a mixture there of some that need changing, some that don't. But remember, in the middle, we're going to change that division by keep, swap, flip, okay, to change those to multiplications. Pause the video, have a go now. Okay, so for our first one then, we get 21 over 8 divided by 7 over 8. We're going to keep, swap and flip, and then we multiply. So we get 168 over 56. So again, some quite big numbers to deal with here. You might want to check them with your calculator as you go if you need to. And 56 goes into 168 3 whole times with no remainders. Our second one then, we get 11 over 2 divided by 1 over 3. Keep, swap, flip, gives us 11 times 3 is 33 over 2. And 2 fits into 33 16 times with 1 remainder back over the 2. Our next one then, we've got to change both of them this time. So we get 7 thirds divided by 5 thirds. Again, keep, swap, flip, gives us 21 over 15. And that leaves us with 1 and 6/15. Okay, I think they can be simplified. So 3 goes into 6 and 15. So we should get 1 and 2/3 as well. Oh, sorry, there we go. Sorry, 1 and 2/5. Our next one then, 43 over 10 divided by 18 over 21. Keep, swap, flip. Now we've got some quite big numbers here. So again, you might want to check these with your calculator to make sure. So 43 times 21 is 903 over 180. 180 fits into 905 times with 3 over 180 remaining. And we can simplify that to 5 and 1/60. So we've got some quite big, more complicated numbers to deal with here, but the process is the same. Our final one then, we've got 12 over 5 divided by 11 over 10. Keep, swap, flip, multiply our numerators and our denominators, gives us 120 over 55. 55 fits in 2 whole times with 10 over 55 remaining, and 10 and 55 can both be divided by 5. So we get 2 and 2 out of 11. Okay, make sure you're happy with those before you move on, particularly those ones we've got quite large numbers to deal with. All right then, so we're moving on to the problem solving section. So as always, you have a choice here. You can pause the video and have a go yourself, or you can work it through with me. So we're told then a rectangle has a length of 2¼ meters and an area of 7½ meters, and we want to know the perimeter of the rectangle. Okay, so remember the area of a rectangle is the length times width. We know the length, we know the area, so we're going to need to find out the width first. So substitute in our values. So our length was 2¼ times the width, which we don't know yet, is equal to 7½ Now if I want to find the width, we need to do the reverse process. So if we start at this end with 7½ instead of multiplying by 2¼ we do the inverse, the opposite. We divide it by 2¼ So now we've got to divide our two fractions. They're mixed numbers, so we're going to change them to improper fractions first. We get 15 halves, then 15 over 2 divided by 9 over 4. Remember, keep, swap, flip. We multiply together, so we get 60 over 18. And now we can either simplify first or change to a mixed number first. So 18 goes into 63 whole times with 6 over 18 remaining. And we can simplify our 6 and our 18 by dividing those by 6. which gives us 3 1/3. So we now know the width of the rectangle is 3 1/3. Now our question asked us what's the perimeter. So remember, the perimeter is the length plus the width plus the length plus the width. It's all the way around the outside, and there are 4 sides. So our perimeter was our 2 1/4, which is our length, plus our width, plus a length, plus a width. So let's change all of these into top-heavy fractions, the improper fractions first. So 2 1/4 becomes 9/4, 3 1/3 becomes 9/3, then the same again. Now remember, to be able to add fractions, we can only add the ones with the same denominators. So I can add 9/4 with 9/4, and I can add 9/3 with 9/3. So that gives us, I'm sorry about that, I'm just going to take that back a step. There are a few errors there. Right, let's change these again into top-heavy fractions. So our improper fractions are 9/4 plus 10/3. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10. I'm so sorry, I forgot to add the additional 1 in there. And again, the same there. Okay, now let's try adding them. So we can add the 9/4 with the 9/4 and the 10/3 with the 10/3, which gives me 18/4 plus 20/3. Now again, to be able to add, I need the same denominator. So we look for the lowest common multiple of 3 and 4, which is 12. So we get 54/12 plus 80/12. Add the numerators, which gives me 134/12, and then either simplify or change to a mixed number first. So we've got 11 2/12, and I can simplify the 2/12 to 1/6. So our answer is 11 1/6 meters. There we go. Just shows how careful you've got to be when you're doing these questions, that even the math teachers can make mistakes in them. So if you haven't quite got to the end there, go back through and just check through your answers as well. Okay, well, thank you for working through that lesson with me today. That's the last lesson in this unit. Please feel free to go back and watch any of the other videos from this unit in preparation for your unit test.